All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, Pete and Marie here again for installment 2 of the Understanding the Masculine and Feminine Energy. So if anyone's got questions throughout, just type them into the box on the screen, and then I'll get them here, and then I'll ask them to Marie to answer for you. So all good. I'll hand it over to Marie. Cool. Go for it,
Thanks,
Marie.
Pete. Thanks. Hey, everybody. Thanks very much for your comments for last week. It was a lot of fun, and I actually got to meet a few of you, which was a lot of fun as well. So I hope everyone's had a great week. I've had another fantastic week. So looking forward to tonight's webinar and sharing some information around masculine and feminine energy, but talking about the relationship cycle. So why I wanted to move into this space was last week we talked a lot about the attributes of the masculine and the feminine, and how that potentially has a biological view, and it also has a behavioural view. So one of the reasons why we need to balance and understand the attributes of the masculine and feminine is they do have an impact on how we behave, but also how our body internally behaves. So to kick off, I just wanted to start somewhere. And a few of the questions and answers that we went through, just so we've got a bit of a grounding before we move forward. So one of the things that on reflection I thought we probably should just get out there again was there is not a better, masculine and feminine doesn't have a better attribute than the other. They are both equal in their own standing. In our society today, we have a bent towards masculine energy in a feminine body, but that doesn't mean that the masculine in itself is negative. So I don't want people to walk away thinking, oh, masculine energy is bad, I shouldn't have it. If I'm a woman, I shouldn't have any feminine energy if I'm a man. Really, it's a society thing that we've moved probably too far. So if we go back, the 5,000 years when we were in a matriarchal system where the feminine attributes led society, so we make decisions, etc. The reason the patriarchal system came forward was because we needed more of the masculine in society for various reasons. So with the masculine energy coming through that part of history, we get things like medicine, science. Science wasn't around before the masculine energy came through into society. We have technology and innovation. So we need the masculine attributes to create those, to actually ground those things and bring them into reality. So the feminine is the creative, where we can imagine, where we can really visualize, but we need the masculine for us to bring it forward or to bring it into reality. Unfortunately, as human beings, we all, sometimes we're not all perfect. I know Pete is, but sometimes I'm not. That we have so each attribute has a balance. Some people call it the light and the dark. I call it resourceful and unresourceful. So unfortunately, in the patriarchal system we have now, we've basically gone to the more unresourceful side of the masculine energy, and we don't understand enough of the feminine energy to have that as a strength. So what does that mean, and why am I telling you that? I don't want people to be down on the masculine energy because we need more of it in our society. I don't want women to think that they have to reject it. But we need to embrace what are the resourceful sides of masculine and understand the unresourceful sides of it, which are fear-based decision-making or thinking. The other unresourceful parts of the masculine are judgment and control. So if we think about just how we might live our lives and how we might interact with people, there is a lot of judgment and control, how people are behaving with themselves or with other people. So in an unresourceful state and left to its own devices, the masculine is very destructive because it creates stories around fear, and it creates stories around scarcity. And that's why we need the feminine to balance it out, to actually say, well, actually, it's not fear. We need to move into the knowing and the safety and the potential and the abundance side, which is what the feminine attributes have. So Pete, as a guy, I'm interested to share with the women that are on the call that even though you have masculine energy naturally, do you still encounter that fear-based thinking that the masculine has?
Yeah, definitely. Um, like if I'm making a decision about something, or I would like definitely hesitate and overanalyze it, overthink it, and then fear would drift in. Whereas if I'm in my masculine, I'm noticing now, because I'm more aware of the masculine traits, that I can just go bang, make that decision, and go for it, and get more quicker about making those decisions.
Yeah. Because I think sometimes as women, we make an assumption that if we're masculine and we don't want it to be, or we're getting a biological, I call it a biological message that says I need I need more feminine attributes because my adrenal glands are shot and I need to have more energy in my life. That's generally how it happens for a woman. Um, I just want people to get some perspective around the masculine traits because they are extremely important. If we only, as women, only had the feminine traits, we would move into the other side, whereas we wouldn't be resourceful at all. We wouldn't actually bring anything into reality. We'd be having a great time dreaming and daydreaming and creating, but we wouldn't actually move anywhere. So it's important that we know this is a balancing act, and it happens within, we say, the left right brain or the masculine feminine energy, and it's happening all the time. The trick is to understand when we bring ourselves back into balance that you move through them. So you might have a situation, if I give an example, if you're working in an organization which is particularly masculine, they all are, that it can also be feminine within a masculine environment. It just takes awareness of how you contribute in a masculine way or you contribute in a feminine way. We're taught from a society perspective to react, and the reaction will more than likely come from the masculine side because that's the side of I suppose, of our energy system that's there to protect. Because remember, masculine is outward, it's giving, and feminine is inward, it's receiving. So a natural traits in society is to, if we're going to give something, whether it's an opinion or we're going to judge something, that's always from a masculine side. But we have a choice that we actually don't have to do that. And if we choose to actually operate from the feminine side of our attributes or our right side of our brain, you'll find that you may speak less, but you actually influence and impact more. And that's a really interesting, I suppose, idea for women who are normal or are actually used to having to have control through contributing and talking and feeling if when they don't do that, that they're in a place of weakness or lack of power. And why I wanted to start there was as we move into talking about relationships, we bring somebody else into the picture, the issue of power and influence becomes really significant. So before I move into that, I just want to really clarify what I'm talking about, power and influence, what it is. Because we are in a patriarchal society and we're an unresourceful masculine, we have a view that power means to have power you must win and therefore somebody else must lose. And I'm not referring to power as that. I'm talking to power where it's a win-win. And influence is where that is also a win-win, where there is an outcome that moves something into a space better than it was before. Not, I need to make you surrender, I need to make you get on your knees, I need to be the victor here, so I need to belittle you or take something from you or make you feel small to have power. That's actually force. And there's a really good book by David Hawkins for people who are interested called Power versus Force. And when we understand what power really is, we go, oh, it's actually internal. So power is an internal function, and the more powerful you become comes from balancing of the masculine and the feminine energy. So because they are equally powerful, it depends on how you use them will be how you influence and the impact that you have in your relationships. Does that make sense, Pete?
Yep, perfect sense.
Cool. Okay, let's talk about relationships. Every single relationship we have has a power base to it, and every single relationship has a cycle. I'm going to talk about more of an intimate relationship today, but the cycle is the same for a business relationship. It's just the attributes of it become a little bit different. There's also the same for our relationship with ourselves. So as women, we have a cycle every month and it goes through this cycle. So everything we do is a cycle. So when we're in a relationship, it starts off in the spring where everything's really happy and we love everything and,
Lots of
nothing's
sex.
wrong, and there's lots of sex and there's a lot of lust, and, we have rose-colored glasses on. That's the dating courting stage. And in that stage, we have fundamentally a lot of our core needs met. We have 6 core needs and we have most of them met. And so we're very, very happy creatures. If we move through that sort of 3 to 6, and look, the time frames can change, but for 3 to 6 months, at around the 6-month mark, let's be honest, ladies, we start to think, where's this going? What's going to happen? Is this going to move or not? If things don't change, what you'll find is the relationship will end there. If you move into the summer of the next cycle, which is summer, you'll form routines and roles. So you'll get introduced to friends and family. You might start to have a certain night that's always for you. It might be a certain couple you see. It might be specific things that you do together. And you're having all your needs still met, but you're moving more into I have some certainty around my standing and my feelings for this person, and I have some certainty about their feelings and standing for me. So you sort of move past is this going to be a relationship or not, or whatever. And look, that can last between 6 to 18 months, and in that space, everything's pretty cool. However, if you don't move into the next part of the cycle, your relationship will stop there. And I find this is the transition from summer to autumn, where I find I have a lot of my clients have trouble. So in every relationship, we need to be able to give birth to things. And that doesn't necessarily mean give birth to children. But if you're going to remain as a relationship couple or committed and attracted to each other, you need to find something that you do together or you give birth to together. So it could be children. You could grab a business together. You could get a house. It's around here, you might get a house together. You might buy a pet together. It's a space where we start to nurture and protect our space in our relationship. So if we don't move into the birthing or reaping rewards of our spring and summer, then your relationship will die away. It'll come to an end. You'll either stop being attracted, or one person is ready to have that nurturing component to the relationship and the other one's not. Now this can go on for about 18 months to 3 years. And then just let's give an example. Say you have had children, and then around the 3-year mark, you probably go, well, I've been really focused in my nurturing role, whatever that is, and I'm ready to actually look at something else. So you're moving to the winter, and that's where we start to reflect and potentially hibernate away from the surrounds of our society. So it could be you both might go away and go, you know what, we need to reflect. It's a time where we want to reconsider where our relationship's at. You might have a death of an identity. So just say you have become a parent and now the child's more independent, and you might decide to go back to work or to do something else. So you extract yourself from whatever it is you've given birth to, whatever it is that you've created together, and you start to do something else together. Now at this point, you will move back into the spring. So whatever new is, you start to go through that love process again, where everything's new and fresh. You start to, it's similar to dating and courting, where whatever it is that you've decided to do becomes, you're in love with it all. And everything is rosy and there's no problems, and then you go through the cycle again. When you don't continue to go through this cycle together, you'll find that your relationship becomes either dysfunctional or it'll just end. However, some people don't end them. So they might get stuck in the summer and they've got their roles and routines, but they never really move through to that commitment of birthing something or reaping the rewards of those roles. And you'll find that I find people can sometimes go out together for years and years and years and years, and then all of a sudden they might, oh, we should get married or we'll move in together, and then they break up. It's because they don't really want to let go of the summer part or the summer cycle of their relationship. So cycles are very important to remember because we go through them all the time, and this spring, summer, autumn, winter happens daily, it happens monthly, it happens every year, whether it's a relationship at work, a relationship that you have with your parents. You continually have to grow. This cycle is also consistent with how we grow as individuals. if we don't continue to go through our own spring, summer, autumn, winter, our own personal development, this is when we get stuck and we start to procrastinate. So why am I talking about this in relation to masculine and feminine energy? As we go through these cycles, we need to be one more of the other as we come through them. So you find, ladies, when we go into our spring, we potentially can be quite feminine. We're receiving a lot when we're happy to do it. We move into the summer and we're trying to get roles and responsibilities down pat. We potentially can become a bit demanding. As we move more into our masculine, the birthing and reaping is more feminine, you need to receive more again. And then back into reflection, sometimes we can become quite masculine. The trick is that you do all of it all of the time and rely on which one that you need for whatever situation is coming up. And understanding that your partner is doing that dance with you. So it's important that we get that the cycle is very natural, and it may give some answers to why some relationships that you've been in haven't maybe worked or have actually fallen away at a certain period of time. Maybe you weren't ready to move out of the summer, or maybe you were really ready to move into the autumn and your partner wasn't. So when we don't move through this, but we stay in a relationship, we create this thing called the drama cycle. Now, unfortunately, in relationships, I see this far too often, both in a leadership or work environment, in an intimate relationship, with siblings. This cycle that we have is perpetuated a lot in our society today, especially in the Western world. So it's that rescuer, victim, aggressor cycle. So you could be in a relationship with somebody, because you got to remember, for you to be a victim, they have to have a villain, which is the aggressor. You can't be a victim by yourself, and an aggressor can't be an aggressor without a victim. So the cycle just continues to go on. So you might have a relationship where, say you're in the summer and you really want to move into the autumn and they're not. And so you move into a victim mentality where you portray that person as being callous or nasty or whatever words that you want to use about them. And then that person might, react and they go, oh, well, that's really not fair. And they become quite soft, and then you rescue them. So, and it could go the other way around. You might become the aggressor, they become the victim, and then you rescue them. So your relationship becomes based on the drama cycle of, I have to have a problem, there has to be an issue, we have to have something bigger, there has to be a big story for the relationship to actually have any connection to it. And when you boil down and get rid of all the drama, it's a whole lot of kawumbis. There's actually nothing really going on. This is just a way that you're getting or maintaining attraction within the relationship, because you're forcing your partner to either become masculine or feminine, whichever one you want them to do. Generally speaking, and this is a massive generalization, in my experience, the woman plays the victim. She puts the man in the aggressor spot, trying to get him to become more masculine. And then when he does, but he becomes very apologetic, she, instead of moving forward with maybe her threats, she comes and rescues him and said it's okay, because she's got that moment of feeling like she's safe. And so why do we do this? So we all probably heard of the amygdala, which is the back of our brain. And this little function that was put in the back of our brain by whoever created us, this fantastic creator that we have, put it in there so that we knew when we were in danger. And originally it was put in there so that so it activates our fight or flight response. If you're in a situation where your life is literally in the balance of life or death, so you might have a creature trying to kill you and you need to run or you need to stay and fight, that's the purpose of it. In today's society, we don't have that, that evidence on a daily basis that our man or the masculine side is going to protect us. And that's really the purpose of masculine energy in a relationship, that they will protect and serve, because it's an outwardly facing attribute or energy. Because we don't have that evidence every day, our bodies biologically manufacture it so that we fire off the amygdala, so we actually get evidence to say he's going to stay and protect me. It's extremely unresourceful, and if you get into a pattern of doing the victim, aggressor, rescuer on a regular basis, your relationship has no foundation and no basis. It really has to rely on there to be more drama, which creates a lot of illness in some people. So, Peter, have you ever experienced this drama cycle in a relationship of your own?
Yeah, all the time. With my sisters, to be honest, with my sisters, I would notice that pattern a lot. I would get angry with
Yep.
them. The next thing I'd be the victim, and they're lending me money. And next thing I'm rescuing one of them. Definitely in a family dynamic. And yeah, probably in a relationship, but it's been a while, so I can't really remember any standout examples. But I would
I
probably
also see this happen. Sorry?
no, I can probably relate to it. Yeah,
I also see this a lot in work environments where you get not just females, males do it as well, where you get they obviously don't feel safe in their work environment, or they don't feel like they're getting the acknowledgement or the whatever it is that goes on in their head that triggers it off. And they'll start to do behaviour where they'll either be pulled up so they get attention. This is about grabbing attention and making sure that you feel safe, because when we don't feel safe in a relationship, we do things to get the attention. So what we really want them to say is, it's okay, I'm not going anywhere, I'm here to support you, I'm here beside you. And when that doesn't happen, this amygdala just goes crazy. So for the ladies on the line, we've all been that crazy woman. That's what's actually happening. It's a biological reaction that you're actually triggering off. So you're not going crazy. It's just an unresourceful way of getting attention. But in a relationship, when you feel safe and you know he's always going to come home and he's always going to provide, I know it sounds odd, but it's a biological reaction. You can switch it off. Some women don't like to switch it off. Some women like the drama. Some men like the drama. I've actually been out with, a guy who loved this process, and he would always initiate it. He'd always play the victim, and it used to really annoy me. And I'd become the aggressor, and that was him just checking in whether I really cared enough for him to go through the bumpy patches. That's what women normally do. So if ladies on the line, if you've gone through that, I'm interested to hear your experience of it, and if you have any aha moments around the drama cycle. So moving into a strong foundations for intimate relationships. So we have two people involved. We have the cycle. So when we meet, we attract, we come into spring, then summer, then autumn, then winter. We also have a beautiful dynamic where there's three pillars to the triangle. We have to have a lover's component to our relationship. We must have the mother, father, parent, so that's the giving birth part to our relationship. And we must have the best friends component to our relationship. And we put all those three together, we have some really strong foundations for an intimate relationship. This is obviously not the triangle for a fantastic business relationship, but it follows a very similar type of attributes. So it's not lovers, that's about respect. The mother, father, parent, it's not terms that, but has the same connotation. You need to actually have something that you have connected together on. So you've given birth to something at work together, whether it's a project or you're part of a team, you're part of a culture or a tribe, and you need to be able to have communication as best friends where it's not just all about work. But if we look at the strong foundation for an intimate relationship, some people call or refer to this sort of stuff as the ideal relationship. And I'm always really scared to talk to people about what ideals are, because what works for other people doesn't work for some others. If you have these triangles in place and these parts together, you will have a strong foundation. Each of the triangles have their own triangle within them, so there's actually deeper parts to this. But I don't want anyone to think that there is one type of relationship that people should be aspiring to, because how you connect and you work with the people that you love is unique to you. Yes, you need to have these foundations and these cycles going, but you actually might work it out that your masculinity is actually where you want to be with his femininity. So there's no rule that says he must be masculine, you must be feminine. However, when you don't have that balance, you'll find biologically you'll both have biological issues because your body's not designed to have one be more strong than the other. It's designed to have both and move together. And these triangles, the lovers, the mother, father, parent, and the best friend, allow you to have that balance all the time. So you switch your relationship, if you have those three pillars there and you work on them all the time, so you're actually consciously aware that they're there and you're consciously aware that you work on them and you deliberately have ways that you continually show your best friend part, so spending time together as individuals, so things like date night, going out just you two, making sure that you're interested in each other's values and activities is very, very important. Just as the physical part or the lover part of your relationship is extremely important, and the thing that you've got, you know, the mother, father, parent is about having joint responsibility for the welfare of something else. If you don't have one of those things in your relationship, you'll find that biologically something's sort of missing and you might try and find it somewhere else. However, I just want people to get hung up on the fact that they have to look a certain way, otherwise they're doomed. So if you're in a relationship right now that you're very, very happy in, and you might not have one of these triangles totally down pat, that's fine. Just make sure you're aware that you might want to look at that and go, I probably need to bring a bit more of that into our life together. So Pete, do we have any questions?
Not as of yet.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go to a question that we had on Facebook last week, and the lovely lady cannot be here tonight, so I'm going to answer it for her here. And it's a doozy of a question. So I'm going to read the question as she has written it. And she writes, the experiences of my early childhood, forced me to have developed a lot of masculine energy. So just on that, just so we can be really clear, no one forces us to do anything. We have choice all the time, even as children. We're just not quite sure how to exert that power or that choice. But I understand where she's coming from, but the word force means that she had no choice, but she actually did. But it's never been where I feel the most comfortable sitting. It has been a real joy and greatly liberating to be able to shed that masculine armour over the last year and feel safe in my real home, which is my divine feminine. It's awesome. But I still find that when I'm in the presence of a man or men who are not in their masculine, I step straight back into masculine. It's like someone who has shown some spine, so if he won't, I will. I don't like this. I want to be able to stay centered in the energy I feel most comfortable in. But I'm such a fluid woman that I always seem to morph to fit what is missing in the alchemy. How do I stay in my feminine no matter what is happening energetically around me? It's a really cool question. So remember we spoke about last week that when you're one, the other person has to be the other, because for you to connect. Now, if you want to disconnect from someone, that's fine. If a masculine person comes into a room and you're masculine, you'll find that you won't connect. You'll either think, oh my God, that guy's a bit of a douche, because your masculine's actually bouncing off each other. It's like when you see two alpha men and they're, you know, who's the bigger man in the room? That's their masculine energy bouncing off each other. Now, they move, for them to get together, they still say they're masculine, but they actually, one has to receive for the other one to give. So they have to listen at some point. When two guys are actually going at masculine for masculine, you find neither of them are listening to each other. That's the trick. The feminine part is they receive by listening and they give back. But generally, you know, guys talk about facts. So, you know, the footy score and the person who's moved to whatever team and the stuff that girls don't really get. So in an energetic space or energetic perspective, when we're in the presence of somebody else, if they come across really masculine, we'll either fight that and push back with our masculine and have a disconnected relationship, or we will receive with the feminine and either listen, make a choice and move on. We don't have to actually engage in that relationship at all. However, I have personal experience with what Carly is telling us here. I actually had a recent experience probably last week, and it became very, very apparent to me that I had a choice. Because my masculine is very well honed and I've had a lot of experience on how to use it both resourcefully and unresourcefully, let's be honest. the person who was in my presence is a very feminine man and a very unresourceful feminine man. And what I noticed I'd been doing was he was turning up, and like, you know, Kelly was saying here, I was becoming a little bit annoyed because he wasn't stepping up and he was being a little bit of being a bit of a victim, really. And he was trying to get me to be the aggressor. And I'd seen him do this a couple of times. I thought, you know, don't play into that. He wasn't doing it consciously, but he hasn't got that permission to be a man. And that's the bit we need to remember. When a man does that, they're either waiting for the space for them to have permission to step into it, or they're really just playing the victim. And you've got to play with what's going on there. But you as the woman have a choice, and as a man, you have a choice all the time how you contribute and influence that relationship. So the other day I noticed that this, you know, pattern kept coming up, and I thought, you know, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to leave the space. I'm going to leave the silence there and just see what he does. And sure enough, he took control. He was just waiting for me to give him enough space for him to feel comfortable enough to step into it. Now, if he'd sat there and done nothing, we would have just disconnected and moved on and, you know, gone about our day. But I'm around this person quite a lot. And we're not in an intimate relationship, it's definitely a business relationship. And so the learning for me in that moment was, my influence in this relationship is to allow him to be whatever he wants to be, and I make a choice whether I actually want to engage with it or not. Because before, stepping into the masculine really was just playing into an old pattern of mine, but also an old pattern of the person you're with. So the feminine knowing knows that space and process always win out over outcomes, focusing on the outcomes. So I want him to step up right now, and if he doesn't step up, that's a failure, and having to feel the silence. It's a big difference in the two attributes of the masculine and the feminine. The feminine actually is not scared of silence, and is not scared to allow things not to have to happen right there in the moment. The reason why a female masculine wants to step in is because the masculine's always focused on, I need an outcome and I need it now. And if that outcome doesn't happen now, this is a failure. Which is it. The feminine attribute knows that's just incorrect. It knows that sometimes people just need time, and sometimes the first time you go in, you might be planting a seed. The second time you come back, the person might be going, oh my God, I've thought about that. Yeah, that's actually correct. I don't want to be like this. I want to do what's going on over here. So to answer the question, it's not really that there's anything wrong with her or anything wrong with him. It's that her masculine thinks it has to take control. So we talked at the beginning of the call about power and control and judgment. The masculine, left to its own devices, makes up stories and creates fear. So in this situation, I'm saying that her masculine creates a story that unless she steps in and takes control, something bad's going to happen. And that's just a story. That's not true. That's not real at all. So Pete, have you had that experience yourself where you've had a bounce-off relationship where you're waiting for some space to step into?
Yeah, definitely. I'm probably not been given that space in such words. Like it's been a clash, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And how's that made you feel? So have you got, is this an intimate relationship or in a business relationship?
Yeah, intimate. Yeah, it would have definitely made me feel emasculated in a sense that it's like bashing your head against the wall. It's just like masculine versus masculine, and you want to take the lead and stuff, and it's not being like there's no pathway for it. It's like I'm in my masculine, but at the same time, both of us didn't know anything about masculine and feminine. But looking back, I can tell now.
Because the interesting thing is, if a man's not used to being in his masculine, it's quite frightening. Like, it's a bit scary. It's a bit like when a woman tries to just all of a sudden be feminine. It's a bit weird. Like, you feel like you're in a different world and you feel very, very lost. So it's my experience. Like, wow, this is just so different to what I'm used to. We all need space. So it's like if you're used to being a masculine woman and people around you are used to you behaving in a certain way, and then all of a sudden you're consciously activating your feminine, behaving more in a feminine way. So it could be things like you've changed your hair, or you've stopped wearing black for everything, you've started to wear colour, which is a sign the feminine energy is coming forward. And people around you might not like that. They might say, well, what's going on here? What are you doing that for? That's the asking you to retreat. That's actually a bit of a test with the people around you, but it's a bit scary. So we need to realize that we all need space to be able to try those new things out. And so if you're in a relationship with anybody and you've got space to step into something, then you're more likely to step into it. But if the person's not allowing you the space and just focusing on the outcome now, that's how we get disconnected a lot. Because, I mean, I think in this example, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but there could be, some judgment here around the validity of the person who's not, as in her words, stepping up or showing some spine. That's a judgment call about somebody's, ability to do certain things, or maybe their strength. And that's really just the masculine having a story time, because you don't really know just because somebody doesn't step up in that moment to do what you think that they should be doing, has got no reflection about their ability to be strong or to be decisive. It's got nothing to do with that. That's really your masculine just making up a bit of a story time for that poor person. And as a woman who accesses her masculine, or used to quite a lot, there's a lot of stories that we tell about other people and how worthy or unworthy or how good or not good they are. And in a work situation that we judge their abilities and their development on really the masculine just going to town on story time. And unfortunately, that can happen in intimate relationships as well, and becomes extremely dramatic and painful. So, Pete, you got anything you wanted to comment on that from a male's perspective?
No, that's pretty much, you've pretty much covered it all. Bryony's got a question here.
Hi, Bryony.
As you balance out your energy, will you attract a different kind of person into your life? I can even answer that, but you go for it, Maree.
No, you answer.
No, well, definitely, because you're coming into your, if you're in your masculine, you'll be coming more into your feminine, so you're going to automatically attract a more masculine man. Would that be right?
Yep. So remember, the two things can't exist in the same place at the same time. So if you're letting your masculine take the lead as a woman, what happens is the only aspect of that man that you can attract is the feminine side of him. So say you're out, partying or out with friends in a social event, and you like to take charge, and your masculine likes to be in that environment, because I find a lot of women, when they're out, they become quite masculine, and that's fine. Alcohol may be induced, or it could just be that they're masculine generally. They will find the only person that you'll meet when you're out is the feminine side of that man. So things might happen like, he won't buy you a drink, or he won't be respectful, or he won't think of things. That's the feminine side of him coming forward, because you're actually in his space. You can't receive. So I know Pete and I have done a workshop together with some people where we teach them of the single women some basics when you're on a date around how to bring the masculine side of a man up. So the masculine side of a man has some really basic touch points. This is not, we overcomplicate lots in our life, and we need to realise that the masculine of both sides of us is very, very basic. It's the feminine side that's a bit more complicated. So the masculine side in a man, if you give it a job, it loves it. So basic things, basic 101, is you need to allow him to give to you, and you need to receive it. Simple things. You need to get him to pour you a glass of wine. You need to give him jobs to do so that his masculine will come out. You need to get him to, and if he's not doing it, you need to ask him to do it. And he'll do it, because the masculine does want to come forward. He probably just doesn't know what to do. So a lot of the times as a woman, we're in a masculine, maybe on a date or starting a relationship, and we sit there with all these expectations and rules and judgments, and when he doesn't do all those things, we think he's a bit of a loser. And in reality, he might really want to do them, but you're sitting in the space that's doing it. So you're directing traffic, you're sitting there with this, judgment frame and expectation, and benchmarking him and saying, well, the loser didn't even open the door for me. Well, probably because you walked through it first, or probably because you actually was so forceful at the beginning that he just didn't have the space to step into. Now, Pete, from your perspective, from a man, having those small things to do when you're getting to know someone, how important is it for you?
Yeah, that's massive. Those little things like opening the door, pouring a glass of wine, asking for the bit, like all those little things that we can do makes us feel really good. But like looking back over history, growing up, it was like probably got to the stage that it was like you were scared to do those things because the woman was probably going through the whole no, I can do this myself, or it's equal rights and blah blah blah. Do you know what I mean? And that was like over history. That's what I experienced growing up. Probably because I was attracting a masculine woman, because I was in my feminine. And then it got to the stage that I was just scared to even, to ask for anything. If whatever it was, they took the lead, and I was, I felt as if I was in a box nearly, but it was all brought on by myself.
And it's no one's fault. So there's another question on Facebook last week from Emma that I did answer on the page, but it's probably worth sharing if people didn't see it, where she asked whether you can change the energy in a relationship. And she made a comment, Emma's made a comment saying that, she thinks she might have left, knowing sort of this now, she may have left a relationship too soon. The thing we really need to be really clear on is if you've left a relationship, it's for a good reason. It was probably part of that cycle that you didn't move to the next part of the cycle, so the relationship come to a natural end. And that's okay. Not every relationship we have in our life is meant to go forever, but they're all meant to help us by learning something about ourselves and about how we relate, generally speaking. Can you change the energy in a relationship? You definitely can. It really depends on two willing parties. So I've done quite a bit of work with couples, and I may have started working with the female in the relationship who's been quite masculine, and she's come to me because I do a bit of work around bodies and how you activate the feminine energy within your body and how you get used to that balancing of your energy. She may have come to me because she's had some health issues, or she's feeling extremely exhausted. But she ultimately says, I really want you to talk to my husband or my partner because he's not stepping up to the plate. And so I talked to her about the masculine feminine dance and the balance and how she needs to move over. And then when I start to talk to the males, I have to be really honest, it doesn't happen all the time, but some of them will get to a point where they say, I don't want to be any more masculine. I actually like being like this. I actually like not having to take the lead on everything. I like the fact that she takes charge. And if it works for those couples, that's fine. But you need to give him the space for him to work that out first. So yes, you can definitely change the energy in the relationship, but it may not be 100% one way or 100% the other. And I've also found women who said, yep, I really want this to be balanced out, and you get a certain way down the path. They go, no, I don't want this to go any further either, because I don't want to give up all the control, because we perceive power as being about control, and in reality it's not. So to answer Emma's question is, yes, you can change the energy in a relationship, but more importantly, I don't want anyone to think that they've failed in a relationship, if it's left or it hasn't gone any further, because it probably wasn't supposed to be. And you can't go back and unchange things or undo things, because you can only be here, you can't be there. And the fact that you're here for a reason and you're not there. This sounds a bit weird, but we've got our heads around the fact that the relationship I had 5 years ago, while I'm devastated that it ended, I can't go back and redo that relationship knowing what I know now, because I only know what I know now because of that relationship. So I can't have both of them. And if I stayed in that relationship, I would only stay in that relationship knowing what I knew then and not what I know now. So would the relationship still be any more successful? Probably not. The relationship took its course and did exactly what it was supposed to do, as painful as it may have been, and now I'm in a different space, ready to attract a different type of relationship. But if we go back to the cycle of relationships, yes, we can change the energy of them anytime if we have two willing partners. And that's why underneath all of this, that understanding of what power and influence is about, wrapped beautifully around our ability to communicate, is how we continue to grow through the cycle. We as individuals must continue to grow for our relationships to grow, or else they all die. I hope that was clear. I hope I've answered Emma's question and represented her question appropriately as she had it on Facebook.
Yeah, Emma's online here too, and Brenny says that was a great answer. Thank you.
You are more than welcome. Hey, go on, Emma.
Yeah, she says you definitely did answer it. Smiley face.
Good stuff.
And she's
Any
great.
other questions we've got there, Pete?
Not at the minute. I can just probably speak about that. Like for me, growing up, definitely in my feminine energy, and I was definitely attracting masculine females. And then only whenever I started becoming more aware of this and working with Maree, and probably for the last 3-4 years maybe, I'm definitely been working and becoming aware of how to bring the masculine in. And it's scary for me because it's so unfamiliar, and it is a challenge for me. Some, like, not as much now, but probably when I first started, like, it was really weird. I was taking the lead and stuff, but at the same time I was still attracting a masculine woman. So that was like I was treading on thin ice at some stages, and I was really confused. I don't know if you can talk any more about that, Maree, with my experience. But yeah, but now I've got the balance happening, and I can turn one on, turn one off, which is really, really good.
Well, part of it is in relationships. We learn our relationships from a very young age. So we learn, formative years between the years of 0 and 7, and we learn in that space what love means. We learn and we make meaning of what we think love means based on what we believe is happening in our in our environment. So when we had the question before about, I was forced to be my masculine, no one forces anyone. Energy will fill the space. That's definitely an experience. And that's an experience for us to, I suppose, cherish rather than, banish. So if I share an experience with, my family, I think I shared last week, my mum's very masculine, my dad's quite feminine, mainly because she's so masculine, and I adopted the masculine to make up for my dad. Now, if that hadn't happened in my life and I hadn't gone down a path where I got to experience things I did, I wouldn't be the person I was today. If my parents had that fairy tale, beautiful, TV relationship with the picket fence, I would be probably the most miserable person in the world. Because me, as who I am, that idea of a life seriously gives me heart palpitations and makes my skin crawl. So that idea of having that perfect environment where everything's normal and great, it seriously freaks me out, and it always has. When you go to people's houses and everything matches, I start to itch. Like, it's just something in me that I just don't relate to. But if you look how you actually will follow the patterns of what you learn in your life, the fact that I was brought up in an environment that probably wasn't the most functional, I mean, I love my parents and it was a fantastic upbringing, has allowed me to explore who I really am. Whereas if I think about people who did grow up in that beautiful picket fence life and they have gone on to try and replicate that, because I don't think there's anything wrong with it, I find them miserable and unhappy because they haven't got any resistance to actually try something different. So I don't want people to think whatever has happened in their upbringing is let's not judge it, let's embrace it and say, guess what, this is amazing, is I get to learn stuff and get challenged by it to allow me to grow and develop something that's really connected to who I am. So we need to be aware that whatever we learn between 0 and 7, we make the meaning of. So it's got nothing to do with the environment that you're in. You can make whatever meaning as a child that you do. The challenge is it's been made by someone under the age of 7. And so if you don't go back in and check on what it is that you believe and how you've developed relationships and the idea of love or the idea of being a woman or the idea of trust or the idea of sex or whatever it is that your idea is, you're walking around with the ideas that were created and beliefs that a 5-year-old put together. So the idea of growth is that you do have to continually check in. That's why everything's a cycle. Everything has to be checked in, and you have to have a period of letting it go. Otherwise, you're carrying around stuff that a 5-year-old made up. So I always liken this to, if we look at nature, and nature is perfect in its existence and its cycles that it has. We always have a summer, a spring, an autumn, and a winter. It never fails. And each of those seasons has a particular purpose, just like our cycles do. So if you imagine if a tree gets to autumn and decides to hold on to 10% of its leaves. Because you know what, it just doesn't want to let it go. It's going to hold on to it. And it goes to the next cycle, comes back to the next autumn and says, you know what, I'm going to hold on to another 10% of my leaves. So I've got 20% of my leaves still here, old and rotting. And that cycle goes on for a few years. Imagine what would happen to that tree in 4 to 5 years when it hasn't actually let go of all of the things it needs to let go of to continue to grow. It'll either die, it'll stunt its growth, and become extremely frustrated, and it won't actually live to what it's supposed to be doing in the world, if that makes sense. So as individuals, as we go through cycle and growth, we need to continually learn to let go and shed. And, you know, the word death is used when you read books around this, but it's not death as in physical death. It's the death of the identities you have around it. It's the shedding of the skin. It's the clearing out of your closets. It's the letting go of the love letters. It's all of that stuff that continue to help you move through these relationships and allow you to continue to balance stuff out and make meaning, the meanings that are more resourceful for you about love, relationships, trust, value, and self-worth. Did that answer your question, Pete?
Yep. I'm just going to unmute Bryony here. She's got a question that's far too long for me to read out, so I'm just going to unmute her instead.
Okay.
Alrighty. Hey, Bryony.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh my goodness. Hi there, Maree.
Hi, Bryony.
It's really natural because I've worked in the corporate world for so long. It's really natural for me to feel masculine energy and feel powerful in doing things and achieving goals, setting goals, achieving goals. But in terms of the feminine energy, what's the powerful place that you're aiming for in feminine energy? Can you paint a picture of what that is?
Yeah, totally. So when I would say the first time I was in the corporate world, I exactly understand what you mean. And the achievement was fueled by the masculine. So the feminine still achieves, but it achieves in a way that is nourishing to our physical body. And I'll explain what that means. So in a masculine body, in a masculine energy in a woman's body, and I'll use your example, in a corporate world where you are achieving and you love that, the feeling that you get in your body, you think is power because you have that rush of adrenaline or rush of testosterone, which has a very strong reaction in your body. But in reality, it's an external, it's pushed outside of you. So it's an external view of what achievement is. So it's based on you being acknowledged or rewarded or someone else's approval or someone else's recommendation. Whereas when you're in the feminine part and you're achieving, it's your internal understanding of what is good and what you've achieved is your standards and your ability to say, I actually did a really good job, and letting go of all the nitpicky things that says it's perfect or it could have been better, all the judgment crap that comes out around approval and having someone else having to approve you as being okay. So that's the biggest difference between having masculine fueled energy in a corporate environment where we're looking for achievement versus doing it from a feminine perspective, and you feel you actually have more strength when it comes from the feminine side because you don't use any energy or brain space wondering what other people think. You remove yourself from their approval, you remove yourself from having to have so many people like it or want it or need it or say you're good, or going to meetings and having the expectation that you need to be acknowledged, and when you're not, you get really upset or you feel a bit crushed. All of that stuff goes away. Is a big difference.
I love it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Because the feminine is internal. You have your own guide about what is good and what is you've done your best and you're actually proud of yourself, and you don't need anyone else's approval for it. Whereas the masculine goes looking for it, and when they don't get it, we get upset, we get crushed, we get disappointed, we get, that guy didn't tell me I was good and I was really good and he didn't say this, and that all that stuff just disappears.
It sounds like fun.
It is, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot, well, it takes the same amount of energy to worry about what someone's thinking about to just not have to worry about it and just think about what you want to do to make yourself happy. So I'd rather focus on how I make myself happy.
Yeah, for sure. Is there any I mean, obviously takes a bit of a transition to get to change from naturally being in one space to being more balanced. Is there anything that you can recommend? Because obviously letting go and not caring what people think and being less action oriented, all those things that you need to let go of, it's a transitionary process.
It's a good point. And you know what? Sometimes you'll do it really well on some days, and some days you'll be really bad at it. And I still have days where I go, I had an expectation. I don't need to have an expectation. It is a bit of a practice, Bryony, but learning to create that space for other people, I have found, is the easiest way for me to do it. So it's that because the masculine has so much judgment, it's being consciously aware of when you're judging others. Because in reality, when you're judging someone else, you're really only judging yourself. So if you're looking at things through a control judgment frame, you're really having quite negative self-talk. Even though you're saying it's Bob, you're really blaming yourself. And you'll find that you'll have the same pattern of beating yourself up a bit when things aren't perfect, or you haven't done things quite the way, or you haven't got the acknowledgement you think you should have got. So part of allowing the feminine to come in is allow the people that you're around to step into their space and letting go whether they own it or not. So letting go of the outcome. And you really just focus on the process of you turning up every day, just being you. And letting go of things having to happen in a specific time frame. Because why I raise it is I've found at the moment, I think I mentioned last week, I'm finding that I can influence a lot easier by letting go of the outcomes, and I find that people come to agreement a lot quicker whether if I tried to force it instead. So if you find yourself trying to convince people, you've moved into too far into your masculine. We're not here to convince anybody of anything. And when we try to convince people, we're actually not in a place of power. We've moved into an unresourceful space of energy, which no one's picking up. They'll either find you they won't actually connect with you from an energetic perspective. So the cues I have are, listen more and talk less. And that will be really uncomfortable for your masculine to start with. It'll be like inside going, what do you mean? I've got an opinion, that person's an idiot. It'll go bananas. But you need to just let it go bananas and observe and say, it's okay. It's just having, a bit of a day. But learn to listen more is the first key. The second key is knowing that you don't have to control everything, and the area of what you think is control is just your masculine side creating a story, because you're not here to control anything. And if you think you do, you're actually lying to yourself. That's just a massive fib, because just because you don't do it doesn't mean it won't get done, and just because you don't do it doesn't mean it won't get done okay. So it's letting go of what we believe is perfection. So we say, but if I do it, it'll be done right. That's just another fib. So, because there's people that say that we need to have perfection, they really don't have any standard. You need to be able to allow things to flow, and you'll find things will happen more, and you'll be able to influence the situation rather than being the doer. Because the masculine woman ends up doing a lot and not really coming out on top. So listening, letting go of the outcome and having to control the situation. And how you do that, Brian, is just sitting in a space of awareness and just observing what's happening. So becoming a witness to what's happening around you rather than being an active player. And just do that for an hour one day. And the next day you might do it for 2 hours. And just in those moments where you're witnessing what's happening, just laugh. Like, don't have any judgment around it. Just go, just because I didn't say anything, things still got done. That doesn't mean anything about you. What you're witnessing is that the energy will flow regardless whether you're in it or not. So your position of power is when I interject into that flow, I'm going to influence it rather than mess it up or interrupt it so that I get my control out of it. I'm not quite sure if that made sense. But so listening, not focusing on the outcome, focus on the process of showing up and just witnessing what it is that's happening around you, and laughing at it. Because when you start to go into witness mode, you start to realise that there's a lot of drama going on and not much else.
Yep.
The drama cycle is everywhere.
Cool. Well, we're going to have...
Thanks. That was a great answer. Thank you.
Cool. We're going to have to wrap it up, Maree. Yeah, good answer. Good question, Brennan. Good answer, Maree. And if anyone else has got any questions, I'm going to be posting this up on the Chastity page tomorrow, so people can comment and ask questions for next week or whatever. Anything else, Maree?
No, thanks, everyone. So next week we're going to dive more into that power and influence. So how do you bring yourself to a relationship where you are actually more influential and you therefore have more energy? So my space is that I want people to know how they create more energy, not feel exhausted by their life. And power and influence is one way that you do that. So understanding your masculine and feminine through the power and influence. So next week we're going to dive more into that. So if you do have any questions about specific examples on relationships or yourself, your own health, please bring them or send them through before the webinar.
Cool bananas. Well, everyone says thanks, Maree, and thank you very much from me. And we'll see you next week, or we'll hear you next week.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool, everyone. Have a great week.
All right. See ya. Thanks, guys, for
Bye.
joining us. Bye-bye.